everybody! So now that you've made your design, now is the time to turn your design from Tinkercad into a real life model that we can test. So you could do this with whatever materials you have at home. You could use cardboard or paper, popsicle sticks. Think of whatever materials you would make it from in real life and just come up with the best approximation that you can. It doesn't have to be exact. You can get really creative with what you have. You could use food in your pantry if that's the best option for you. I just made this out of cardboard, some rolled up paper, tape, and a couple of pencils. So hopefully those are the sorts of things that you might have in your house. So for the boardwalk in front of the North Beach cottages, there's a few different criteria that we need to keep in mind when we're evaluating the success of our design. So because of its proximity to the ocean, we want our boardwalk to be able to withstand some waves in big storm events or really high tides. It also, for safety and access, needs to be able to support the weight of an emergency vehicle. And we can't forget that it needs to look historically accurate and shouldn't have any unnecessary negative effects on the beach surrounding it and the ecosystem in the area. So what we want to do with our model is test it under some simulated environmental conditions that we can do from home. Some of these things might be a little more logistically challenging than others, especially depending on the materials you have available, but there's definitely some things that we can do to test it at home. One of the easiest things to do is testing to see if our boardwalk will support the weight of a simulated emergency vehicle. So to keep that weight really consistent between all of our tests, we're going to have you use 1 liter of water as the standard weight for measuring the success of our boardwalk. So you can use a 1 liter full water bottle if you have one. You could also measure out the same volume of water in multiple cups. There's about 4 1/4 cups of water in a liter. So once you have your weight ready, you can gently place it on top of your boardwalk and see if it holds up. So far so good, but you also want to make any notes of if there is signs of buckling or damage, or if you think it would wear out from having this happen a long time. So keep an eye on your model for any signs of stress. So another thing we can do from home is test our boardwalk in a makeshift wave tank. So the wave tank can be helpful for testing your model in wave action, and as an optional extension, if you have access to some kind of sand or soil, you can also use it to test the effect of your boardwalk on erosion. So to make a really simple wave tank, all you're going to need is some kind of container that can hold water and is big enough for your boardwalk model, and a little bit of water, enough that you have probably at least a 1/2 inch so you can make waves, but also we're not putting this boardwalk underwater, so there's no need for it to be totally full. But just go ahead and place your model at one end, and any kind of flat object can be used to make waves. If your tank is small enough, your hand will probably do the trick. But just make really gentle movements back and forth, and you can see it creates waves. So what you're going to do is set a timer and do this for 3 minutes and make note of any sign of damage or waves putting our boardwalk or the cottages behind them at risk in any way. If you do have access to some kind of dirt or sand at home and you have permission to take it and use it for the model, definitely go ahead and use it to create a beach when you're making your wave tank rather than just leaving it with water. This is going to be a more realistic way to test your model, but obviously it can be a little more logistically challenging, and we don't recommend doing this if you're running your model in your sink or bathtub. But go ahead and make a sloped beach underneath where you're putting your boardwalk and do the same wave tank test like you would if you had made the simple model. The additional thing this lets us do is test how our boardwalk model affects erosion on the beach. So if you do that, you're going to have to think about how to test your model with our boardwalk strategy in place and without it to see how the boardwalk makes a difference from a natural beach. If you can't add any sand to your wave tank, which is understandable, think about ways that you think the boardwalk would affect sand on our beach. Do you think it would move or change in any way if we implemented it? Are there any strategies that you put in place in your model that you think would help prevent sand loss? These are things that you can take note of that we can't necessarily test. The other thing you can think about is If your boardwalk is historically accurate, obviously your materials might not be historically accurate, but think about what they would be made of in real life and what you did to make your boardwalk look more historically accurate.